Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. We have titled it, It's Fabulous, How to Easily Renumber Your Revit MEP Elements with Ideate ReNumber. My name is Sash Kazaminejad, and I am the Customer Success Manager for Ideate Software, and it is a pleasure to be with you guys today. A couple of housekeeping items. If you do have any questions for me at all during this webcast, please go ahead and type them in the questions panel. What I'm going to do here is answer those questions at the end of this webcast. That way we can kind of get through it to start with. Also, one of the things that we always ask people to do is at the end of this webcast or when you close out of it, you're going to get a pop-up here for a brief webinar survey. It shouldn't take more than about 2 minutes. We want to hear from you. We want to know how we did on today's webcast, what your thoughts were, on this topic, but also if you do have any requests for future webinars or future workflows, please let us know. We want to continue to do these kinds of webcasts to help you be more efficient in using our products. Also, this webcast is being recorded and it will be posted on our website soon. So be on the lookout for that if you want to share it with anybody that could not make it to today's presentation. All right, so a little bit about me. Once again, I mentioned my name is Sash Kazaminejad. I'm the Customer Success Manager with Ideate Software. My background is in architecture and got my degree from Montana State University many years ago. I am also a California licensed architect. Been in this industry now for quite some time. Started back on Revit 8.1 and also had a really heavy AutoCAD background prior to that. Been with Ideate now for over 6 years, and I'm a Revit architecture, structure, and AutoCAD certified professional as well. All right, so why are we here today? Well, we're here to help you simplify your Revit data challenges. So that's really what our tools are all about. We have 5 product offerings. Most of you are probably familiar with most of them, but we really want to help you be more efficient in your day-to-day workflows when using Revit. And we're really all about the data editing, data management, and also data viewing tasks. All right, so the focus for today's webcast is on Ideate apps and specifically Ideate ReNumber. The reason why we chose this topic is because Ideate ReNumber has a lot of power. I absolutely love ReNumber. It's fun messing around with the rules and kind of customizing them and kind of seeing what we can come up with. And we want to just kind of do these little 30-minute webcasts to give you a reminder of the tools that you have in your arsenal. And so ReNumber, again, has some pre-configured rules, but we can also show you how to kind of customize those rules. And we want you playing around with them and asking questions. And if you need some assistance, we're here to help. So for today's topics, we're going to talk about creating custom rules. I'm going to focus on doing a little renumbering using some data outlets for today. Again, we can renumber many different items within Revit, but I'll focus kind of on the data outlets for today. And also a little bit of MEP fabrication renumbering. So these were some requests that came in from folks in the past, and so we started kind of looking at how we can better assist with the fabrication renumbering process. By the way, the stuff I'm going to be showing you today really can apply to any other industry, whether you're mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structural, or even architectural. We can help out. So, ReNumber isn't just focused on one particular industry. We focus on many different industries. One of the things I do want to remind everybody of, when they are using ReNumber is remember the rules. We do ship ReNumber with many pre-configured rules, but I also just wanted to remind you that, where the locations are, what the rules are, how to access those, and the fact that they are customizable. So let's start with this. We have some base rules here, and I've kind of highlighted them over here, I suppose, with all the different types of rules. And again, these are just some that we've created, but you can certainly create your own. I have also kind of highlighted the MEP fabrication rules just because I will be talking a little bit about fabrication today. But these are some of the kind of the base rules. So when you launch ReNumber for the first time in a project, we pull in those rules from the default location on your local hard drives. We also do have some bonus rules. Some of these bonus rules actually came about from working with specific customers during our beta testing. Some of these customers were very nice and worked with us on some of their workflows. And so we said, hey, you know what? We're going to create you some rules that we can put in the bonus rules, so you can actually load those up. Right here with this big giant orange arrow, we're pointing to you. Basically, you come over here to this ellipsis button over here. You can get a listing of all the rules that are kind of loaded up in your projects, and even including some custom ones over here. But if you want to create any sort of new rules, you can hit the new button over here. In addition to that, if you do create a custom rule, like for example, this one that I had created a long time ago, you can actually export this out and save it on your server or in your project. You can share those with friends and family, and they can load those rules up into their projects as well, as long as they have all those parameters and everything set in their project. So we've really tried to make this as flexible and as customizable as possible. The other thing I want to remind you of, I don't know how many people really know this, but ReNumber actually works in schedules as well. Now, you can't draw a path through your schedule. That'd be kind of cool. I could also see it maybe turning into a little bit of a complicated pain, but it does work in schedules. So don't be afraid to try ReNumber in your schedules. The only option, especially for those that have used ReNumber before, you're probably familiar with this feature called AutoNumber. That's the only option that will work. You cannot draw a path in your schedule. That's a Revit limitation, okay? But that's pretty cool. What you want to do is actually sort your schedule in some manner in terms of how you want to kind of renumber your elements. You can kind of see over here, there is some sort of logic to the order that these elements kind of renumbered in. And that's because I had preset the sorting of the schedule as well. So don't be afraid to play around with that. And, you know, I think most of you probably have, you know, some, shall we say, you know, custom views and custom schedules that are really for internal purposes only, not necessarily ones that will end up on sheets and printed out for construction documentation. I like to call those like working schedules and working views. Don't be afraid to create kind of renumber specific type schedules and renumber specific type of views. And you can, of course, categorize those, which is really nice. But really be thinking about how you can really utilize this tool for your day-to-day workflows. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just kind of dive into a demo. Again, we have 30 minutes here in total. We want you to go about your day afterwards and start playing around with ReNumber some more. But I'll show you real quick some of the custom rules here. I'll ReNumber some data outlets and then also get into some of the MEP fabrication items as well. So what I'm going to go ahead and do here is just kind of switch over to Revit. And I'm just going to take a quick look here at the questions panel. Doesn't look like I have any questions so far, which is absolutely okay. But let's start with just some kind of with some data outlets. So in this particular model over here, I'm just going to keep it small. I do have some kind of data outlets here, and I use some filters that kind of color them based on what network switch they're going to. And again, I'm just kind of using a really simple example here. One of the things I wanted to point out to you is, you know, I matched my space numbers with my room numbers from my architect's model by using ReNumber. And I know some folks have other ways of doing this, but just as a reminder, ReNumber can also help you with this task if you don't have another way to, you know, match your space information with a linked room information. We have rules for that. So in this particular example here, I have some network switches that I've kind of labeled network switch 1, 2, and 3. And I also have kind of some data ports here. And some of these do tie back to these particular network switches. And one of the things that I'm interested in is maybe renumbering these things based on maybe what space they're in and basically maybe what network switch they're tied into. Again, you can get pretty clever and pretty creative with this. One of the things that I've also done here is I've just created a series of detail lines. These are detail lines. You don't want to use model lines for all sorts of reasons. Number one, on purpose, we set ReNumber not to recognize model lines because, as you know, these things will show up in all your views, including 3D views. It'd be kind of awkward, right? So we use detail lines for this. And by default, Ideate ReNumber will use a default line style that we've created, but you can certainly customize ReNumber to use a different line style if you want to. I'm going to just go ahead and launch ReNumber here. And basically what I did here is I drew a series of a chain of lines here. And you can see here the little open-ended circles, which means they're connected. And I just kind of wound them through the data outlets with the intention of kind of renumbering along a path. If I launch ReNumber here, what I wanted to show you real quickly is, what is the default kind of out-of-the-box line or out-of-the-box data devices rule look like? We shipped it with some standard rules, but then I also created a custom one here that I'm going to show you in just a moment. So for the data devices, what we've done here is we've created it so you could just kind of manually type in what you want for a level. So you can say I want it to be 0, 1 dash, and then maybe I want my data outlets to kind of increment as they go along this path. And so if I hit, let's say, crossing here, and if you've never looked at this graphic, I think it's pretty straightforward, but we're going to renumber elements along a path. And they're just going to go in the order of this path versus a vertex, which I can kind of jump around here, but the vertex of the line, basically the corner of the line, has to actually touch the outlet, and then it can, renumber in that order. So if I just do select path crossing, I'll just kind of show you what this looks like here. When I hit start numbering, down in the bottom left corner Revit, it says select a line. And if I select a line, basically what we're going to do here is just renumber these data ports in the order of the line. So we mathematically kind of calculate that. And if I hit accept changes here, you could see over here the way it went, okay? And so it doesn't matter which end of the line, you can reverse the order. We're just calculating coordinate points to start with. So we ended up starting over here, and we kind of went along. If I come back over here and just kind of do the same thing, so let me just come back over here and do that, select the path, hit start numbering, and I pick it, I can certainly reverse the order over here, and you can see now that it starts over here and kind of works its way along here. So that's really simple. Now, one of the downsides, let's say maybe to renumbering in this, or it could be an upside, it just depends on what it is that we're not accounting for any sort of space information in the numbering scheme. So you can see this is space number 132, but there's no information in here. So, for me to locate this, it would take a lot of work, right? And the fact that I also had to draw a path here. If I come back to ReNumber, let's look at that rule real quickly. If I come over to the Access More Rules, and I look at this one right here, and I go to Edit, basically the way this rule was compiled is that this is where it's just a constant. You type in this number, and then we're using an increment. And if I double click on it or hit the Edit button, either way, if I select this, we just type in a name, NUM. That's just so that you know what this means. We pick the default starting value. Let me just go 0, 0, just as an example. Okay, and then we're incrementing by 1. So that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. As for the heck of it, I'll increment it by 2 just to show you what that means. Okay, and then this increment per is one of the issues here. And the increment per means we're not incrementing it per space or incrementing it per family or level. We're just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 until the very end of the line. There's no change in the numbering schema. If I say increment per space, what that means is when I hit the next space, it's going to change the numbering schemes. Okay, so I'm going to hit OK here just to show you what happens, and also the fact that I'm changing the increment size here. And when I hit save and close and OK, the auto number by view, by the way, does come up, and that's because now we have something to refer to in terms of coordinate points, where before we don't know where to start the numbering. Is it way over in the upper right corner of the project? Is it the bottom left corner? But at least with auto number by view, we have a place to start with, which could be, in this case, each space. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start the numbering at 0, 0, 1 again and do the select path crossing. And I'm going to hit this line over here. And now you're going to see something really interesting here. You can kind of start seeing maybe another issue here, which is the fact that we are going to have duplicate mark values. And the reason why this is happening is because as I renumber along this path, Okay, it's increment per space. So what we're doing here is we're just saying, okay, start with this number, but when you get to the next space, you're starting over again. That's the increment per space. And so you can see here, we are starting to develop repeats over here, right? And then when I start getting this space, you can start seeing the numbering skipping 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. And the reason why is, if you remember back at that rule that I was in, let me just come over here to the data devices and go to edit. If you remember when I went to the increment, I'm skipping. Okay, so I'm going 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. I'm incrementing twice and then changing the numbering every time I hit a new space. That's what that really means. Okay, so just kind of something to keep in mind over here. Okay, and by the way, we're targeting the parameter here called mark. So if I do come over here and close this out and I hit this data device, we're pushing the data into the mark. Okay, now let me just go ahead and come back over here to ReNumber. I'm going to show you a custom rule that I made, which I just called it level prefix and panel and space. And let me just show you what this one looks like here. If I come in over here and I go to edit, we're going to use a field called level prefix. And if I come over here, I actually made a custom parameter called level prefix. And what that means is I actually came in here and I added a custom project parameter called level prefix and I assigned it to levels. And so on level 1, I typed in 01 for that prefix. On level 2, I typed in 02. And so forth. And I called it level prefix. So instead of me typing in the level number manually, I'm now going to just have Revit use that information and automatically assign that. I put a dot in here for a constant. Okay, and then I'm grabbing the space number, the space that this data outlet is actually referencing. So now I can automatically concatenate this data. Okay, so I'm grabbing the space data, and then I'm putting another dot after it, followed by what panel is this referencing. So I'll show you that in a moment, okay? And then a dash, and then an increment, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm changing the numbers on a per space basis, okay? So let me just show you something here real quick. Before I renumber with this, here's what I'm talking about. When I select this data port, it has a panel number assigned to it. You see, I can even use like circuit number, whatever I want to use. But basically, I'm concatenating information like the level prefix. So you see, this is on level 1. If I were to go to a level in my project and actually select it, so if I come over here and draw a quick section through here, let me just do that real quickly and see if I can find a level. Of course, I can't. So let me just do this here and uncrop this view and see if I can find a level in here. But what I was getting at was, if I look over here, I added a custom parameter here called level prefix and type that in there. So we're going to use that information along with the panel number and some other bits of information and also the space number to actually renumber this. So take a look at this. I'm going to go to ReNumber. Okay, I'm going to grab this over here, and now I don't need to type in the level number. I'm just going to say what number do I want to start with, 01. And then I'm going to say, you know what, do it for me. Meaning we're going to pick a coordinate point for each space and automatically number these data ports based on the space, okay? And so when I hit start numbering, you can see over here how everything looks. And one of the things I want to point out to you is I also think this is a great auditing tool. And the reason why is I can see that these values right here look a little funny. And the reason why is none of these outlets over here actually end up getting an assignment for which panel they're referencing. So it's even a nice little auditing tool. You could see over here that these ones actually do have a panel assigned to them already because of how the numbering looks. So even just a great way to say, you know what, maybe I want to zoom to this element and go back to it, and you can see there's even a warning here, and actually assign this a panel before I do the renumbering. But because we have 10 minutes left, I'm not going to do that exercise right now, but you can see the old numbering over here and what it's about to be. And when I hit accept changes, you can see this one here doesn't look quite right, and that's because there is no panel assignment to that. But if I do come in over here, we can see now how this works. All right, so basically we start over here, and we just kind of go in the order based on the panel number, and you see these have different panel assignments. That's why the numbers look a little different here. okay? But you can see over here as we go along into each room, we can see how these number. I did not renumber along a path for this one. I just said, you know what, Ideate, you're going to choose the coordinate point and renumber along there. So this is a nice way to kind of set up your renumbering by using other bits of information in your model like the space and like the panel information so you can concatenate that data and create a really awesome renumbering scheme. All right, so that's a little bit on using data. Again, if you're doing electrical outlets, you can do that. You can do lighting the same way, mechanical elements as well. It's really up to you. Okay, so a little bit on that one. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to switch over to a model that has a little bit of fabrication. This is not an exhaustive, study into, fabrication here, but nonetheless, it's kind of a simple one here. And again, the goal here is to kind of just show you how we are currently interacting with MEP fabrication. We don't get into every bit of it, but again, we certainly do cover some of the fabrication. We did work with some customers to get some feedback on, what are they looking at targeting in terms of MEP fabrication parameters. And I want to point out to you that I made an assembly out of this, okay? And it just has just a default name over here. Of course, most of you that are using assemblies are going to have your own naming convention, for the assembly. But what I also wanted to point out to you is if I, tab and select the individual components within the assembly, you can see there's a lot of information that pertains to the ductwork. And one of the items that we found out from folks that they're actually using for labeling is the item number. Okay. And by the way, if you have certain renumbering requirements, especially with fabrication or anything for that point, and you're not sure how to figure it out, please let us know. We're always here to help out. If you have any feature requests, definitely let us know. Okay, so you can see here my item number is very generic. I just threw an A, B, C, D, okay? And I want to show you just kind of some of the fabrication over here, okay? And as I mentioned before, we're just going to be kind of using an increment here. So if I go to Ideate software and I go to ReNumber, I'll just kind of show you what's going on over here. So again, we're going to show you the categories of elements that technically exist in this view, okay? And one of them here is the MEP fabrication ductwork. Let me just show you what that one looks like. If I come over to the rules for this one and I go to edit, all we're doing here is just an increment. That's all we are doing. Okay, there's nothing else. We're not grabbing any space data. We're not grabbing any sort of fabrication information. It is literally a 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to push that information into the item number. All right. All right. Notice that auto number by view is not available with this particular rule because, again, where do we start with this, right? If there's so much fabrication, we have to get a little more guidance. If it's per space, now maybe we're getting somewhere. I'm going to use the crossing again. You can see here that I drew this line in ahead of time. By the way, if you didn't draw this line, you have this option here to create a path. What that allows you to do is draw the path while you're in the program, and then when you're done, it will renumber based on whatever method you pick. Okay, so since I already have a path here, I'm not going to draw one. So I'm just going to hit Select Path Crossing. I'm going to hit Start Numbering, and you can see it over here, and when I'm done, there it is, okay? And again, I can come in over here and hit Start Numbering again. I could pick this line, and I can certainly reverse it, and you can see over here that these items were in number, right? But again, they don't tell me anything. They don't tell me anything about, what maybe product code we're using, maybe what space this is referencing, if we can get that information, right? What level reference. We're not getting any of that information as part of the numbering, so it seems very, very generic, okay? So let's come back over here to ReNumber, and let's look at another rule over here. This one here that has the level information. Let's take a look and see what this one looks like. And if I come over here to this ellipsis button, and I go to edit, we're going to grab the reference level. Okay, so there's the reference level. Okay, and by the way, this is not a custom, actually this is a custom parameter once again, except they don't call it level. In this case, they call it reference level. So this, like I showed you before, I made a custom parameter for the levels and assigned it to the reference level. So that way we can automatically get the level number in there without me having to type it in on each and every view. Okay, then I have a constant over here, it's just an underscore, and then an incrementer, and we're now going to increment it per an assembly, meaning if I drew this line through many assemblies, when it hits the next assembly, it's going to restart the numbering. It's pretty cool, right? Okay, so in this case here, if I hit start numbering, use the crossing, okay, there's the numbering. Notice it says 03. That's because of the reference level for this particular items here. So again, if I hover tab and select the individual components, this is actually referencing level 3. Okay, so it's grabbing that custom parameter that I added to levels and using that as a means of renumbering. If I change it to actually use the reference level name, it would be called level 3 underscore 001, level 3 underscore 002, and so forth. Okay, so that's kind of how this one works over here. I didn't run this through a second, set of assemblies over here, so we're just renumbering basically one assembly. However, I do actually have other assemblies over here. Again, this is not a real big fabrication model, but I have some assemblies over here you can see. But what I do want to show you is the ductwork schedule. Okay, and so what I've done here is I've kind of customized this schedule here based on each of the assembly names here, then by level, and then kind of the item number, and also the product code. I'm just using the Autodesk fabrication library for this particular example. But if I come back over here and I go to ReNumber, and let me just kind of show you what, like the MEP fabrication ductwork level looks like. If I say start at 01, all I get is an auto number by view here. That's all I'm allowed to do. Okay, and again, what am I pushing this into? I'm pushing it into the item number parameter. Okay, so if I come over here and hit start numbering and I hit accept changes, pretty straightforward. Okay, that's all we're doing, and we're restarting it on a per assembly value. Okay, or per assembly. Okay, but again, this one doesn't have a whole lot of information, and it doesn't tell me much more about the product code or anything like that. So in typical SASH fashion, I have to make this bigger and more complicated. If I look at this one over here and I go to edit, we can see this one uses a reference level plus an underscore plus the product code, which is this right here, another dash and another incrementer, and again, we're going to push it into the item number parameter. And so if I come over here and just say, make it 1 as an increment and hit start numbering, and I hit accept changes, you can see the numbering fill in over here. Now, the reason why they look like they're out of order is because of just how the product codes work. We're numbering this based on that product code value. I didn't sort it by product code. So that's why they look a little out of order. But you saw earlier when I renumbered it by just kind of using a standard level, you can see there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the beauty about this program is, again, I can come back over here, switch it at any point in time, hit auto number by view, hit accept changes, and you see how fast this is, right? And if I come back over here, once again, it goes so fast, right? I love it. And if I come back to my fabrication plan, you can see kind of the new numberings over here. All right, so I'm going to come back over here. By the way, for those of you that are currently using our products, be sure to download the November 2019 release of both Ideate apps and Ideate BIM link today. So again, ideatesoftware.com/download. Go to free trial, pick your product, and hit download. So don't forget, we made some nice updates, including to ReNumber and to our sheet manager in our November 2019 release. So be sure to check that out. Also, go to our website, follow us. And if you have any questions, email us at support@ideatesoftware.com. I'm going to check the questions panel right now. Does anybody have any questions for me? We're pretty much at the end of the presentation, but I wanted to hang out for a couple of minutes online to see if anybody has any questions for me. And if you have to head out right now, I completely understand, but please fill out the survey when you get to the end. And if you have any questions or features, also put those in the survey. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hang out for a couple of minutes online. But otherwise, thank you for your time today. Please leave us some feedback. We will be posting this recording, as I mentioned before. But I do appreciate everybody taking a little time out of their day to hang out with us today. So I'll hang out here for a couple of minutes, and then we'll end this webcast. All right, looks like we had a couple of folks ask some questions. So one of them is the reference level, is it picking up the info in the model or in the linked model? And for that case, it's picking up the reference level actually in the main model. So for example, when I dropped in some of the data ports, it's picking up the reference level in the main model in that case. Again, you can pick up also certain linked model information as well. That's what's really nice about ReNumber. When you look at all the parameter options to pick from, we also include stuff from the linked file as well. So I mentioned earlier, I had used Ideate ReNumber to take my my space numbers to match my architect's linked model rooms. And so I was able to grab the linked model information as one of the parameters to push that information into there. I'd also received another question about the little warning flag on the data. That little warning flag there more so pertains to some of the MEP elements, and in this case it wasn't connected to any sort of system, so there's a little warning on there saying, hey, I'm not connected. So it's kind of like as if I just put an outlet in the wall and didn't hook it up to anything, and that's what I was illustrating earlier in ReNumber. Some of those families didn't have any connections, and so when I hit the preview in ReNumber, you could see the numbering looked funny for some of those elements, and when I went back and selected the data outlet, you could see that it wasn't referencing any sort of panel. So that's what the little warning flag is. Definitely more of an MEP specific type of workflow than what we'd normally see on the architectural based components. I love that stuff. It's really cool. All right, folks, it looks like I do not have any more questions at this point, so I'm going to go ahead and end the webcast. Thank you for your time. Please fill out the survey. It shouldn't take more than 1 to 2 minutes. We really want to hear from you. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time, and we will be online with you next time. Take care.